So I am watching my team, Tottenham Hotspur, for the first time in the Champions League this season, and I have quite a few thoughts on it, the new format. First thing I'll start with is the league phase is better. I really do think the old format needed a change. It felt so samey and repetitive and just not enough excitement for me. So I don't blame them for changing it, and I do think a league phase works if done correctly. Problem is, I don't think it's quite done correctly at the moment. So we'll start with the first problem for me anyway, just with the Champions League in general, because it's not just the format I'm talking about, it's just Champions League football. And there are too many teams. So there's currently 6 Premier League teams in the Champions League, and there will be next year probably as well. Top 5 in the Premier League get into the Champions League, and I really don't like that. It kind of loses its value of champions. You know, you're not really a champion if you've finished 5th, are you, in the Premier League? The Premier League have the most money and the strongest depth. They're just being given more places, and I really don't like it. That being said, I think still, it shouldn't just be number 1, the first place team, not just the champions. But I think the top 3 teams, I actually think that's what it used to be. Now it's 5, of course. But I think, yeah, top 3 would be good, would be much better. Because you don't have to be a champion in your domestic team to win the Champions League. So if we look at the last 10 champions in the Champions League, going back to 2016 till last year's PSG, 2025 winners. Actually, out of those 10 winners, only 4 of them won the domestic title the season before. So actually, out of the last 10 Champions League winners, 4 of them have been champions of their league. Really interestingly, Real Madrid, who are, of course, the kings of the Champions League, their last 5 Champions League titles that they've won, only once were they the actual champions of the league when they won the Champions League as well. And the rest of the times they came second. So, for example, Real Madrid won it in 2024, but the 22-23 season they came second, which means they weren't actually the champions. They were top 2. Chelsea in the 2021 season won the Champions League, but in the 1920 season, when they qualified for that Champions League season, they finished 4th. So they weren't champions. Now, I have to look at the Bundesliga. One of the reasons why the Champions League is failing for me is the top 4 teams currently in the Bundesliga, of course, are in the Champions League. So you have Bayern, Dortmund, Leverkusen and Frankfurt. And to be honest, 3 of those teams are just really shit. And they're in the most elite competition in the world. To me, honestly, Crystal Palace are more deserving of a Champions League spot than Dortmund, Frankfurt, Leverkusen. So like I said, I really believe that the top 3 in the top 5 leagues should go through, and if they get a Europa League winner, that would be 16 in total. At the moment, it's currently 20. And out of those 20 teams in the top 5 leagues, I'd say it's only Bayern, Liverpool, Real Madrid, PSG, Barcelona, Man City and Arsenal are actually worthy and truly deserving of being in the most elite competition in the world. That's 7 out of the 20 teams. And that's currently what's the problem with the Champions League at the moment. Not just that, if you look at the top 10 that finished in the Champions League spots, 0 Serie A teams, 1 Bundesliga team, 2 La Liga teams, 1 Ligue 1 team, 1 Portuguese league team, 5 Premier League teams. Domination. The next one, and for me the biggest problem, I would say this is, too many games. When Spurs are about to play in the Champions League, and I see that they're playing today or tomorrow, I always think this has got to be the last time. This has got to be the last league phase game, surely. It feels like I've seen 50 of them. It just dragged on for so long. 8 games in the league phase is far too many. Man City have won 5 out of their 8 league matches, and yet they finished 8th. Not enough consequences. Those 3 games that they didn't win should have massive consequences. But because there's too many games and there's so many poor teams in the Champions League, there's just no consequences for their losses. Man City lost 3-1 to Bodo Glimt, and it meant nothing. The perfect amount would be 5. You get 5 games, which is enough for your team to experience a good Champions League a good amount of Champions League time. You know, as a fan, you get to experience it well with 5 games, which is quite a lot. It's still more, well, it's one less than the old group stage, isn't it? But it's still a good amount of games. But it's not too much to the point where the games don't mean anything. 5 games, you pretty much would have to win 4 or 5 of those games to go through. Not just that, because of how many games are in football these days, you really want as little but valuable games as possible. Bringing it down to 5 would do that. And also, with the Premier League, let's just say, which is 38 games, and the Champions League phase, that's 46 league games per season. It's just way too many. There's 144 matches in the league phase with the 8 games each. With 5, it would be down to 75 games, which seems just healthier to me. That last game week in the Champions League, I mean, you needed a math degree to figure out who was going through, who was going where. To me, maybe it's exciting, I don't know, for some people, but to me it was just all over the place and I didn't like it. It's only good if you're gambling or you're looking for some buzz, right? And I don't think football should just be for gambling at all. And not just that, you now need a knockout phase to get into the knockout phase. You know, the draw was confusing. I didn't have a clue what was going on in that knockout draw. It's just too many. A knockout phase to get into the knockout phase. What are we doing? Also, I think first place should get something for finishing first, and this is coming from a Spurs fan. I really believe Arsenal should be given some reward for finishing first. Otherwise, what is the point in a league phase if the winner of the league doesn't get anything? You know, should it be a trophy? I'm not sure about that because the competition is not over with, so probably say no to a trophy. Now, I've seen a tweet that said Spurs got 42.8 million for finishing 4th in the league phase. And I did the maths, and Arsenal would get roughly 49 million. And for me, the difference of Spurs and Arsenal for getting first shouldn't be 7 million. You know, I think maybe an additional bonus would be really good, 50 million perhaps for Arsenal for coming first. Or they could do something where every tie, Arsenal get to choose whether they want to be home or away in the first leg. Or somehow maybe they could do a bye. So if you finish first, you skip the round of 16 or start the next game 1-0 up. Again, controversial rewards, but they really should get something for finishing first. I'm not sure what it is. If you have any idea or any good ideas of what you think that should be, let me know in the comments. But like I said, they should be rewarded for finishing first in the most elite competition. So I'll just bring it back to Spurs, personalise it a little bit. The only time I felt nervous really in the Champions League, I think the first game, because you want to set a good start and you want to set the standard for the rest of the competition, and we won. But apart from that, I didn't feel nervous really at all in the Champions League, and that shouldn't be the case. You should go into every game, I think, in that competition feeling something. You know, we lost to PSG 5-3. That should be a huge loss in my opinion, but we finished 7 places higher than them in the league phase. So that loss didn't mean anything. The games, I think, are just nothing burgers in the league phase. How I would look to do it, so I'd cut it from, let's just say, 36 teams to 30. I think 1 to 14 go through, and then you have a knockout from 15th place to 18th place. So instead of like 8 knockout games to get into the knockout phase, you have just 2. So it's easier to follow, there's not as much going on, and those games become, I think, bigger, more interesting to the viewer as well. And so the 2 winners of the knockout round from 15th to 18th, they go to the knockout phase, and I think the losers, they could go to the Europa League. The 4 teams, by the way, in those positions right now are Atalanta, Dortmund, Leverkusen and Olympiacos. So they would play each other in a knockout tournament. 2 losers, Europa League, 2 winners, knockout phase. Something like this. And then 19 to 30 would get eliminated. Just my quick thoughts on the actual Champions League itself. Who do I think will win it? I actually think Man City might win it, and I think Man City are on for a really special season. They've had quite a poor year so far, and yet they're 3 points currently behind Arsenal. They're in the Carabao Cup final. They're also in the FA Cup, and they're in the Champions League, and I think they'll do really well. Great January signings to kick them on. and I think all of their players can still go up 2 gears. Everyone's talking about Arsenal. Could they win more than one trophy? But I really think Man City are the team also to be looking at in terms of I'm not going to say quadruple because people say that every couple of years. It never happens. It's so difficult. But a treble, I wouldn't write it off for Man City, or 3 trophies for Man City. And I think in the Champions League, they could cause real problems. PSG, of course, Dembele's back on form again. Some of the clips I've seen of Dembele lately are a joke. And I also think Barcelona. I think Man City, PSG, Barcelona are the 3 teams, mainly Barcelona because of Lamine Yamal. I just think, how do you stop him? In every knockout game, I anticipate him to affect the game in one way or another. I think he is currently, with Mbappe, the best player in the world. So one of those 3 teams, I think, to win the Champions League. I will go for Man City. I think they'll win it. And I think Haaland will be immense second half of the second or last quarter of the season. What are your thoughts on the new format? What are your thoughts on the Champions League in general? And thank you for watching.